Yeah, it's one of our kids. He's committed to LSU. He's going to LSU.
Must be nice.
I just was playing because I love the game. Like, and it's scary to me.
It's really easy for the game to become a job.
Below 6 in his hands, whistle in his mouth.
Man, kids out there playing the game, staying out of trouble, competing. I love it.
Yeah, and he that's what he talks about, Death Valley, and just how cool an experience that's going to be. So I get it. Yeah, like out of all, like Georgia, when we played at Georgia was cool. Now, obviously, like that year we played at Georgia, we weren't very good at all. I think it was like, I don't even know, 40 something at halftime, like 40-0 or something. It was bad, but so the environment, and it was a day game, so like the environment wasn't going to be good. But like that year, we weren't very good, and we played other teams, but Georgia was like not that impressive compared to like Bama, Florida. Those environments were just so different. But yeah,
I
interesting.
do this before, but I don't know if I've ever said it on here. Hardest, like most intense place that I ever played on the road. Bill Snyder Family Memorial Stadium, Kansas State.
Really?
It was the loudest group of
Wow.
45 to 50,000 people. And here's the caveat. Here's the thing that made it worse. We lose a close game late, right?
Yeah.
We were leading over 80% of that game. And then they come back and just kind of do the K-State thing where they just hang around. They win in somewhat dramatic fashion and then are just the nicest people. Great job, you guys. What a game. Like, so proud of the way y'all fought. Be safe traveling back. Like, and it just makes you more mad.
Yeah.
Because, like, if you go to Norman or if you go to, we never did because we always played them in AT&T, but, like, if you go to Lubbock, like, if you go to these things, they hate you, right? And, like, that's part of the lore and the fun of, like, college football and, like, the fandom and the rival, whatever. Nope. They were just, not only did they beat us, but then they were super nice. And it's just like, stop it. I'm
Who
mad.
was the quarterback
and
at
you're
that time?
making it harder to be mad. What's up?
Who was the quarterback at that time?
For them,
Uh-huh.
they were rotating Klein and this other guy, mobile guy. I can't remember his name.
Klein.
Yeah, old Optimus Klein.
Yeah. Yeah.
But after my graduation in 2012, Baylor got their get back when K-State came to Waco, ranked number 1 in the nation, and they just destroyed their chances to go to the national championship.
They're number 1 in the nation?
Yeah, when they beat them, it was like 50 to 24, 50 to 25, something like that.
Oh, wow.
And this is the best story. This is the best part of that game. So Griff had graduated, right? And the offense had been good, not great. The defense had graduated a lot too. And so there were some pieces that were like, Coach Bennett was figuring out, and some young guys that were having to grow up kind of on the fly. So the season was a little rough. And I think at the time they were like 4-5, I mean, not even bowl eligible. And Troy Baker texted me Tuesday of the K-State game. We're going to win by a lot. And everyone's going to be super excited, and I'm going to be pissed. So I'm just going to go home. Because he knew, like, they finally looked like what they were supposed to look like, but they all knew that they were going to win.
Yeah. That's so cool.
That was the game that Lake broke that, 80-yard touchdown run where, like, he just splits like 5 K-State defenders and runs away from him. So have you ever had a game like that, playing or coaching, where you're like, and it's easy to have where you're like, oh yeah, I knew we were going to win, but like in a game that's like a little bit more up in the air, maybe your team might even be potentially the underdog. Like, have you been in a game like that where you're like, no, this is 100% ours?
I'm trying to think. Yeah. Yeah, I've had a couple of those. Obviously not to that extent at the college level. but yeah, I've had a few of those. It's always interesting when you hear people talk about that, and you ask them like, why? Why did you feel that? Was it a culmination of like your preparation? You finally saw it click throughout practice from a chemistry perspective, or coaches made changes and put the right people in the right places. Like, what's the why behind it? Um, but yeah, I've had a few, and they're good feelings, because you're walking into the game kind of with a bigger chest, and um, you just feel way more confident. And yeah,
What's crazy is that like the ones I would say that we had were ones that people, the outside world, you're not going to sit here and be like, well, I knew we were going to beat Sam Houston State in 2010. It's
yeah,
like, okay, well, you're supposed to, right?
yeah.
But like, you know, 2011, we were pretty good, but they were up and down. Like 2009, they play in the national championship. 2010, they don't make a bowl game. And 2011, they're okay, playing a couple different quarterbacks with a lot of great athletes on that team. But they came into our game against them, and there was an outside chance, I think, for them to win the Big 12, and it was in Waco.
Mm,
And so a lot of people were like, "Oh, Texas is just the brand and reputation, blah blah blah," and it was like, no chance. And the biggest reasons were like the style of defense that they played put them into a lot of like man covered situations, and that was not good for them against us at that time.
makes sense.
Second
Yeah,
play of the game, play action deep ball, and Kendall Wright runs. I mean, he just runs by everybody, just almost directly down the middle of the field for like a 60-yard touchdown. And then later in the game, like a pure ice. And these guys, I mean, they ended up both their corners. I think Quandre Diggs is still in the NFL, but both of their guys ended up playing in the NFL. And late in the game, to kind of the icing on the cake to seal it and eliminate all doubt, Terrence Williams just, I mean, nothing fancy, just runs a go straight by this guy. Perfect release, perfect route, stacks the guy, perfect ball, easy peasy touchdown from what it looked like. But like we knew that those opportunities were going to be presented, and as soon as that second play hit, it's like, oh, okay, like we're creating the opportunities and we're executing them, then this is a wrap. Like it's not going to be close.
mm,
And with it being late in the season, Coach Bennett's first year as a defense coordinator, there was a lot of like those things started to click late with like the style of defense that he wanted to run, and being pressure oriented, and understanding like he knew when he got to Waco, it was like you're not holding opponents to single digits.
right.
Like that's not who we're going to be, and if you're going
Yeah.
to be the defense coordinator, you just have to accept that, right? So
Mm,
what do you do to combat that? Well, you try and create chaos and turnovers and things of that nature, and use the aggression on offense to your advantage by extending the lead early to put the game away as fast as possible, right?
mm,
And Coach Bennett did a great job of kind of falling in love with that mentality and that approach, and I think it showed in 13 and 14 and in those years that they were winning the Big 12. Because allegedly, don't quote me, allegedly there's somebody out there that, whether it was a joke or serious, heard Coach Browse say to one of his staffs at some point in his career, "Coach, just let him score so we can get the ball back." Because
I don't doubt that.
that man loved calling offensive plays.
I do not doubt that at all. It's gonna be tough as a DC though, because it's like that you're, from a resume perspective, not gonna look as clean because you're giving up 21 a game or 27 a game, which honestly 21 a game at this point is great, but um, maybe at that time 35, knowing that y'all
Yeah.
are gonna score 60,
Yeah.
and so it's like, dang, if I ever need to get another job, like statistically, it's not gonna look great. Um,
100%. You got to pick and choose. And I think that that's what Coach Bennett, like, what did he look at? He looked at, like, he put a huge emphasis on turnovers. So yeah, they're giving up 19 points a game, right? Which is like not ideal if you're trying to be a really dominant defense, but they're forcing
mhm,
2.8 turnovers a game. And it's like, oh, okay.
yeah,
So,
that'll do it.
No, that's one of the funniest parts about that is that like when you see those different dynamics of those things, like I think that because I did it when I was an OC, and I'm sure you do it too. Like you look at those numbers and you're like, oh my gosh, they got to be better. They got to be better. They got to be better.
Yeah.
But then like when I would go have conversations with people, they'd be like, well, y'all were, and it's just the record. That's all,
Right.
because inherently when you have conversations with coaches, they understand those dynamics. Like I used to get mad when I
Yeah.
was at Salina because so Aaron Ford, the defense coordinator, longtime defense coordinator, I mean, our defense was dominant and aggressive. And like there was a game early, I think my first year there, he got mad because they scored a touchdown. Just the one. And in that
Hmm.
game that they scored a touchdown, it was an 80-yard touchdown pass. It was a slant against our twos. And for the game, so they had an 80-yard touchdown pass. And for the game, their offense had had a total yards of 78. So he had held them to negative 2 yards
Mm-hmm.
rushing, but he was livid about the one, right? And so like that was just his mentality. So
Yeah.
like we would go play district ball games and it would be 28-0 and I'm scrounging to have 190 yards of offense. And we've scored 4 touchdowns. Cuz we haven't
Right.
been in negative territory. We've got the ball on their side of the field every time. And it's just like, I think coordinators get caught up a lot into the statistics and the numbers because you know that there's analytics guys out there studying
Mm-hmm.
and like how you do your self scout and all these
Mm-hmm.
things. But in those situations, which I think was what made Coach Prowse and Coach Bennett so great together, is like, no, this is who we are, and we win by a lot, and we win a lot. So
Right.
it's going to work
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to have a marriage with your DC in that regard, offensively, defensively. Um, and at the end of the day, it's like, did you win? Like, like if I have a resume, it's like, yeah, we only average 21 points a game. You can say what you want to say, but so long as that WL column is W's and L's, whatever. 'Cause it's going to vary, every year. Like I'm killing more time on the play clock this year, or I'm not because of how confident I feel in our kids offensively. Whether it's on the O line or it's skill, whatever. Like I would imagine this year, we're going to be personally here at Lipscomb. We'll be a lot more 10 personnel and a lot more death by 1,000 cuts as opposed to last year was a lot more 12 personnel, duo, run action, deep shot. Um, so we'll be a little bit more. I don't want to say air raid, but we'll be more Patriots with Brady, kind of just.
You're such an air raid guy.
So,
Um,
dude, I mean, those are my roots. Like,
True
now I'll never
story.
go back. I'll never go back to them. Foundationally, I mean, I shouldn't say that. I'll never go back to them as an entirety of a system. The air raid in itself, everybody has those concepts. Um, the air raid to me is a system in which you commit to obviously throwing the ball, having a couple of runs. Um,
We'll just make
but
sure
you're,
that you don't sign that $10,000 NDA.
yeah, yeah, make sure of that. So, yeah, but we'll see. But it's and at the high school level too. It's interesting because it's like we go from last year having three Division One offensive linemen. The other two that were on the O line were they're not quite Division One yet, but they'll get there. To where this year we're going to be so young. I don't want to put that pressure on them of having to block for 3 seconds. It's going to be it's hey, let's just uncover it quick, get it out. We'll take a couple run actions if we need to get into 11 with an extra alignment. We'll do that, but um, that's the beauty of high school football and high school coaches is their ability to adapt is so much greater, in my opinion, than the other levels.
That was like talking, game plan and all that. Again, selfishly, like there were situations where when I was just an OC, like we would put ourselves in a game plan space and like have a good week of practice where I'm like, all right, I know this stuff's going to work and I'm really excited to get it on tape and execute and all these things. And like there was one situation when I was at Salina, I won't name the other school, but we go out there and I've got like I always tried to like be creative with formations and not change personnel and like change alignments and see how people responded and all those things. So we get into a set and it's like a 5-play set. Like we can call it at any time, but I also kind of want a tempo. And I've already kind of predetermined what that rhythm is going to be as far as like when we get into this, it's going to be, but right. Like you kind of start to write the music, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we score in the first play. And like, you're like, all right, great job, guys. Really wanted to see some of that other stuff though.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then you got to like pick and choose your battle. Like, what do you sacrifice? Like, are you going to
Mm-hmm.
jump in? Because I mean, I'm sure you do this too. Like, all right, we're going to come out in this set and then we're going to go score. And then second possession, we're going to come out in this set and then we're going to go score. Right. And you start like predetermining, planning. Well, like, then you score on the first play of the drive and you're like, all right, so do we come back in the same set and just pick up where
Mm-hmm.
we left off? Or do I stick to the original plan and try and work it back in? And, and that happened a couple different times, like in a couple different games when I was at Salina and even at Rivercrest, there was a couple times where like, you got a quarterback that can go 10-9. You might score on any
Mm-hmm.
play.
Right.
And so and I think that it changes from team to team. Like when we were at Salina, those guys wanted to jump back into that stuff and kind of finish that sequence. And then when I was at Rivercrest, it was like, okay, you got to manage conditioning, right? Like, because if you
Mm-hmm.
just jump back into that series and that kid just had to make 6 tackles on defense, right? Like, it may not be as effective. Whereas if you circle back to it when he's not as gassed, and he can be more effective in the offensive game plan type thing. So, but
Mm-hmm.
those were always fun scenarios because you try and build it into the routine of the week. Like, hey, this is our thing this week. This is what we're going to do. Let's get really good at it, but then let's get really
Mm-hmm.
good and fast at it, right? Let's use that to our advantage.
Yeah.
And then, by the end of the week, by Wednesday, kids are like, time us, how fast can we get through these 5 plays, on our
Mm-hmm.
execution, blah, blah, blah. And then they can translate that to being on the field. And then they get into the rhythm of like, I know I'm here and then I'm there and then I'm here. And then, that's
Mm-hmm.
why they build, those play scripts in.
Yeah.
Because I think that there's a lot of different reasons that you script stuff, right? Like you script it to see, and then you script it to kill. Which
Yeah.
one? Which one are you going for? And that kind of leads to something I was going to ask you about best trick play. I mean, you've been calling plays for what, 14 years now, 10 years
uh,
now, whatever it is, forever.
8 or 9. Um, yeah. It's funny. The OC that was at Vanderbilt whenever I was there, him and I are very similar. Like we just don't really have the cojones when it comes to trick plays, and we would chop them up in the week and rep them, and then just never dial them up. And then you have guys that are the opposite, like Reinhardt, who's like, you know what, first place state championship, let's go ahead and just do a trick play.
Oh,
Um,
hook and
matter
ladder.
of fact, let's do it a flea flicker against Fire.
Oh yeah, that's what it
Um,
was. Flea flicker.
yeah, against Sam Fire. Thank God that the
Yeah,
quarterback
your
made a
Division One
miss.
quarterback was able to make it look pretty.
Yeah, it could have been a bad deal there for you, Gary. But it's funny because I was actually talking to Coach White. He actually came by the office this past week. Cortland White. He's on staff at North Crowley, and we were talking about that, and he brought that up, and I was like, dude, I'm not just gonna let you sit here and not bring up they brought Sam Fire, and you got incredibly lucky because you have incredible players. Like that was not like you didn't have the perfect wide seal them off and sealed the Sam Fire, and you got a pocket. Like that was an incredible play by that guy. But anyway, I think the best trick play, I would say two. It worked at Hutto. It was the old Florida State one, and so we're essentially we end up handing it off, like on basically like a fly or a sweep. Quarterback ends up once he hands it off or whatever. Um, he ends up kind of working back. It's actually obviously we threw it back, but he ends up working back to the left. Offensive linemen are working back to the left, He throws it back to the quarterback. Quarterback catches it, and now he's got all the offensive linemen on bulls on parade working down the sideline for him. Um, we did that in the third or fourth round against Foster in 2018 before the half, and almost scored on it. And then the very next year in 2019, we ran what we call Fiesta, which was from the Fiesta Bowl. The
Statue of
throw it,
Liberty.
nope, throw it. He catches it, hook and
Oh,
ladder.
the like
Uh,
full speed hook and ladder. Yeah.
yeah. We ran that, and it worked. And we ran that from like I think it was like on the -40, and it got us all the way down to the 5 yard line. But we didn't ran out of time, so those are the only two that I've ran more that have had
Just don't
like
want to talk about them.
minimal. Yeah, it's like that's why I didn't call it. Uh, that's
Just
why I don't
run the
want to do that.
ball.
Yeah. What about you?
I would say so. I don't know how you categorize them, but I would say that some of the trickiest stuff that we've done was a lot of our 2-point plays. I never wanted to get into a situation where like we had to get a 2-point play, like had to get it, and we
Yeah.
just let's just run ISO, right? Like I didn't want to handcuff, and so you get creative and things like that. In 22, we talked about this a little bit before, but in 22, we have a rematch against Anna in the third round, and we score a touchdown. And if we get the 2-point conversion, it cuts the lead to 3. So now we're in a 1-possession game we had a really good field goal kicker. So get a stop, get a chance, type thing. And we had been running a play, built like practicing it every week, building it as our 2-point, and it was the half orbit, the orbit return double pass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the kids did a great job. Like, because so much of that play is like, the guy you're throwing the ball to, you got to be patient, right? You can't be in a hurry. Like, it's the, thing that people have heard me say a lot. Like, you've got to be covered early so you can be open late. You got to really sell that block type thing. And the kid throwing the ball did a great job of like, he knew he didn't have time to take his glove off, so he didn't worry about it, right? He knew he couldn't. Don't worry about trying to throw a perfect spiral. He's either going to be butt naked or you're going to have to run it in, so you can freaking shot put it 2 yards. And they did a great job of executing that. And then the other one that was probably my all-time favorite, and I got it from Arkansas State back in I think they ran it in 2015 or 16. And forgive me, don't cancel me. It's called Hide the Midget. Push your linemen foot to foot on their splits, and it's like a 2-play series where you huddle and you run quick toss or jet sweep or whatever, and then you come back and you fake the jet sweep, and you do the quarterback spins all the way around and hands it to that guy, and he has to wait. Again, he's got to be patient and let flow follow the jet sweep and the quick toss and the quarterback boot and all the other things. You're selling 3 different things the other way, and he's just got to sit there with bodies around him and then take off. And we ran that in 21 to a kid who was, he was so much quicker than he was like top end fast, but his quickness was quick. But he was, soaking wet, 137 pounds, and could fly. And what was really funny is we run it, and their 3 technique goes straight through and almost blows up the offensive line. And when he stands up to run the ball, he runs into the back of him. I was like, great, the play's destroyed. But the kid had cross face and really bit on the fake, even though he was standing right by the ball. And then the icing on the cake was when he got downfield, there's 4 skill guys down there setting up all his cutback blocks. So,
So perfect.
That was a goated trick play that I haven't been able to. I attempted to recreate at Rivercrest. We got 5 yards out of it. But that's the one that's been tough to top. But I would say that we hit a hook and ladder this past fall at Rivercrest, and talking to some of the community members and whatnot, the kids executed it so well that it looked like a busted play that we recovered from, and they couldn't tell. We thought the ball just bounced off of somebody, and he happened to be standing there to catch it. And coaches get caught up into the super subtle nuances. And I had told the kid playing running back, I was like, listen, you've got to sell this like right at the tackle's hip to get that guy to step up. Because if you run like a
Mm-hmm.
bubble, he's going to fan and try and cut you off. So you've got to invite him forward, blah, 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 all these things. And then he
Yeah.
does it and it works. And you're like, oh my gosh, see what happens when they listen. Why don't they just always listen? Type thing. But I love a good trick play. And
Yeah.
I love being able to call them. We've hit, I mean, I would say that I actively try and hit one, once every few games, because I think it's fun for the kids and it's stressful for the defensive coordinators when you can split
Yeah.
your right guard out like he's a receiver
Mm-hmm.
and make everybody think double pass and then throw a skinny post on the middle of the field.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's where Dilfer was pretty good, and he had a different mindset. Not necessarily on trick plays, but like on reverses. Um, his mindset kind of grew into we're running a reverse um, to gain 2 yards, so the initial sweep can be 20 to 30. Um, I thought that was a pretty good mindset because, like, again, I've never been just like a big reverse guy or trick play guy, and my mindset because of that was like, oh, when you do run them, they got to be big plays, and if they're not, it's a fail. And I did like the mindset of like, no, we're going to do a reverse after we've done 3 or 4 kind of tosses or what we call flies. We do a reverse off of that. The flies after that will be more successful. So simply gaining 2 or 3 yards on the reverse, that is suffice. Um, which I never really, look at it that way, but it makes me feel better if you do run it and you only gain 2. It's like, well, that was my intention anyways. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So
anything after
it's
2 yards is gravy.
yeah, we're good. It was good. So, but yeah, trick plays. Um,
How many
the other
people
one I
do you
want to talk.
think after so you remember the Texas reverse that they ran this year where the quarterback
Oh,
spins around like 3 times and he finally hands it off? How many schools, how
yeah,
many high schools do you think tried to run that
outside
following week?
yours,
Huh? Yeah.
outside of your,
I was
yeah,
about to say, because full disclosure, we
yeah,
did.
yeah.
And that
I
was
feel
that was the first
everybody.
round of the playoffs. And I know for a fact it happened in at least 3 games down here.
Yeah, I fe- obviously I feel like everybody was going to copy that because the big motion that everybody was doing this year was obviously the in front back around motion.
Hmm.
Um, that was a heavy motion this year that I'm sure everybody will not be doing this next year, which because typically that is your triple option type of motion
Hmm.
because he becomes the pitch guy, but Texas utilizes that quite often to be the swing guy or an escort guy or something like that. But yeah, you know dang well that everybody ended up trying to copy that. That
Yeah,
was
we
one of
tried.
those like on Dan Casey, like, oh, got to do that. We got to do that.
Yeah,
So
and boy, Dan Casey, and then he's gonna find like if there's ever a trick plays, he's gonna be like, wow, somebody else ran this in 2011. Let me go find the clip.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
it's
but
funny.
I do know that there that's where I never wanted to, and this is a horrible example because I just said we did it, but I never wanted to pull from like the immediate, right? Like I always wanted to pull the trick play from like 3 years ago that I remembered or like
Yeah,
I saw on something and be like, okay, that way it's not like so fresh on people's minds.
yeah,
Um, Obviously, like I said, that was a horrible example because we tried to do it and it failed miserably, but that wasn't going to be the difference in the game anyway. So,
yeah.
but trick
We
plays, you gotta love
speaking of
them.
that, we started we started 7-on-7. Um, I guess 2 weeks ago, maybe no, a week ago. One thing that I've been doing differently since we're on the subject of concepts is I've been utilizing the last 2 weeks now of 7-on-7, or I guess I should say the last two weeks we've had of it, and 4 games total of trying to um, trial and error 10 yard and in pass plays. Basically, like low red zone pass plays that could be maybe 2 point conversions, but really like I just feel like obviously when you get down to the red zone, there's so much less real estate, and so um, I'm always interested when I talk to people when it comes to red zone pass game. Um, like, do you make new concepts or do you adapt the ones that you currently have? Like one interesting philosophy um, I did a couple years ago was, hey, these 5 concepts we're going to run, but within the 5 yard line, these routes actually convert to this, right? And if you're smart about it, you can almost make brand new concepts, and the kids don't even know it, because you're changing, you're changing a seam to a seam back pylon. You know what I mean? Whatever. But like that's kind of what I'm doing right now. The last 2 weeks is like literally like I installed basically that's how Texas do it. It was a 3x1 bunch. It was essentially slant or foot fire slant to back pylon with snag pump. So the snag guy pumps back to the middle, and the progression was like an immediately back pylon to the snag pump to the speed out return. Ran it, and it looked like we've been running it for 10 years last night. I'm
There you
like,
go.
well, called it Longhorn. It's like, that's going in the playbook. The week before that, we did one, called it, my tight end coach, he played for the Chiefs. And so we have I probably shouldn't say that actually, he'll get in trouble. Um, but,
Drop that.
we have a version of the playbook, I should say. Uh, but anyway, they have one.
You better
It's
be
just,
careful. You've got some connections to a guy who had a really scary stolen playbook story. So
yeah, I don't want to get anybody, I don't want to get anybody in trouble here. Um, Dude, this one was disgusting for those of you who even care about football plays right now, which I'm sure most listeners are, except for my mother-in-law. Um, yeah,
guys, it's April. No one cares.
she's gonna have no idea what we're talking about here. 2x2, okay, into the boundary. We'll go left hash here, right? For those of you who are actually watching, 2x2 into the boundary. So your boundary slot has basically a true stick, so he can break it in or break it out. Um, your boundary outside receiver has a backline speed dig. Running back has an option route up the best A gap. Field slot has a stick, but he can't break on the inside. He's got to break outside. And then your field outside receiver has a backline speed dig for 8 steps, returning back to the pylon. Dude, I've never seen a backline speed dig return worked into the progression. So we tried it last week. Obviously, he ends up being the 5th progression. So you're basically stick, speed dig, running back, stick, speed dig, return. Dude, it was like the nastiest thing I've ever seen. Like by the time that we got back to that speed dig, he's already on his break. Nobody ever runs speed dig returns in the end zone. Um, so that corner was literally running with the speed dig still, but thinking that it was a dig, and our guy already broke back out to the back pylon. Um, so yeah, that's kind of what we're utilizing 7-on-7 for now, just because 7-on-7, in my opinion, is such a waste of time for the most part.
Well, it's all about how you approach it.
Right.
Like if you
Right.
approach it to win, like if you approach it to be cheeky and win, then like you're
Right.
not helping yourself. But they're even talking
Yeah.
about introducing helmets down here, which I know like the state of Georgia and some other places have done that. And I think if they do that, I don't really want anything to do with
Like
it.
actual helmets.
Yeah. Not like
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
soft
Yeah.
shells, but like if you have to
Yeah.
put your helmet on, I think I'm out.
Yeah. There's a couple tournaments here that we go to that they require that.
Does that not
Which
scare you?
it does. I don't like it. I think it's stupid. But yeah, I think it's a waste. Like we played a team last night who we had beat last week, and I'm pretty sure they just wanted a rematch because they take it like really seriously.
Yeah.
I bet last night they ended up winning. I think by touchdown maybe, but I bet outside of the 4 passes they threw over 10 yards, I bet 70% of those passes would have hit the center or the D tackle on the back of the head.
These.
Literally, yeah. And it's like, dude, like it's like I told some of our kids, like it's comical and frustrating. It's comical because it's like, wow, like this isn't even real football.
Right.
Like literally, that dude just ran through the 3 technique, the 5 technique, stood where the 5 technique should be, and caught the ball. But it's also frustrating because it's like it's not real ball, but it's getting us beat. I refuse to adapt to that type of football,
Yeah.
and coach against it. But and our kids don't know any better. Like, oh man, they're doing this, and that. I'm like, guys, that's not real football. Literally, the quarterback just chest passed half of those passes. Like, it's not a real thing. It's
He's soft tossing it across the line of scrimmage to a drag.
it's all fake. It's all fake. Like, whatever. Is
No,
what it is.
and that's what I meant by like it's just all about how you approach it. Like I'm gonna go in and be like, all right, here conceptually, here this is a big part of who we're gonna be or who I want
Yeah.
us to be, and we're gonna find out what we're good at, what we're not good at. When I was at Rivercrest, 7-on-7 was great for me because I figured out that like, okay, we suck at anything that's even remotely hinting at full field. Like that's just not who we
Mm.
are.
Yeah.
We'll live on the half field and we'll just take turns and we'll
Yeah.
formation people, right? But that was a good discovery time for me to learn like, okay, this is what my quarterback's comfortable with. Like
Mm-hmm.
we couldn't really hit between the hashes if he had to start out here. We could hit between the hashes if I could just work it, high to low, low to high.
Yeah.
And so it to me it's also like you were talking about before. Your quarterback's got to start to have some ownership of the playbook and things of that nature. And
Yeah.
it's kind of that progression of how do you manage, okay, here's the playbook, like point, I got this, orange, yellow, red, whatever, positions, colors, all those things. And then at some point you take that away
Right.
and you say, now go execute, now call a play.
Right.
Because and you try and have the conversations like, hey, when clocks run down and we get into like a 1 minute situation, you're not gonna have time to look at that. Guys just no huddle, run here, there, call out what you need, signal it to each
Mm-hmm.
other. And so using it that way, I think is when it becomes really effective. But
Yeah.
there's never in the history, like, do I want to win? Obviously, I want to win. Winning is great. There's a lot of learning that comes with winning and discovery that comes with winning and grit and all those things. Never have I gone into a 7-on-7 tournament, a 7-on-7
Yeah.
league game, any of those things and been like, we have to win. And to win, we have to do these things that we're not going to do in the fall. Then you're borderline into things that,
Mm-hmm.
you're overstimulating their football brain and they don't understand when do we do this, when do we not. And I think
Right.
that that's when burnout comes, because if you put all this emphasis on winning and then you don't win and you're doing things that you're not going to do in the fall, kids aren't stupid and they're going to see
Mm-hmm.
that and they're going to figure it out and they're going to get uncomfortable and frustrated. And it's, to me, 7-on-7 is a great way to continue to push a process oriented approach, right? Like, guys,
Yes.
don't worry about that. What about this? Have you gotten better at 95? Have you gotten better at
Yeah.
that? Do we run that play as a unit? Do we run that play better now than we did 8 weeks ago when we started playing? If the answer
Mm-hmm.
is yes, then we've taken a step forward. And we continue
Yeah.
to ask those questions and we continue to see if we're checking those boxes. And when we hit no, then we have the conversation of, okay, why? Right? If the
Mm-hmm.
only question we're asking is, did we win? What are we talking about?
Yeah.
I think Dave Campbell's did a thing. They do a thing every year. It's like, how many times has a school won a 7-on-7 state championship and a state championship? And I think it's like twice in the 20
Mm.
years, and that's 13 divisions or whatever, right? So you're talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds in the summer and in December. And you've
Mm-hmm.
had it happen like once or twice. So like, and then there's also teams that like they win a state 7-on-7 championship and they don't make the playoffs in the fall,
Right.
or vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you think Wascom's out there, like, or Liberty Hill's like, man, if we don't win the 7-on-7 tournament, like,
Right.
it's a wrap. Our season's going to be
Correct.
horrible. No, like,
Right.
if you can use it as a process oriented teaching tool
Mm-hmm.
and really ingraining your kids that like, these are not the wins that we're worried about, I think it's extremely beneficial.
Yeah. I agree. I know you and I were talking about it before. We stumbled on this with Dilfer back in 20, I guess it would have been 2019, 2020. But one of the best things we do from a quarterback development perspective. What are you doing, brother?
What do you mean? I'm just listening to my headphones. I wouldn't dare run this up my hoodie and call play.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was got in trouble for that. Anyway, so one thing that we do that I will forever take wherever I go, and I do get it. We have more time here at Lipscomb with our kids than anybody probably else individually, but our quarterback calls every play. There is zero play. There's no physical playbook out there. Um, He has a wristband that I probably have 22 plays in there that give him recommendations for drop back, recommendations for 5 out, recommendations for red zone, and recommendation for third down. Um, that's it. But there is zero physical thing where he can hold up and say, here's what we're doing. Um, he's having to get into the huddle. He's having to look the boys in the eye and say, hey, we're going to go doubles left, ace right, drive Fitch. Okay, on my number, ready. And it's making him have to take control. And especially if you have a young quarterback like I have, who I think he may have just turned 14. Um, like it's forcing him to A, know the playbook, B, be able to, if he's an introvert, which he is, have to have the switch to become extroverted in football. But then it's also like last night, like it's a great teaching moment. We go first, and obviously it's 1st and 15. We got completely screwed by the ref, and they called 3 seconds, which it wasn't at all.
3 seconds.
So now,
Jeez.
yeah,
Not
and
four?
or whatever. What? Yeah, no, it's 3 seconds, but so
Ooh,
whatever we
good for
get,
him.
yeah, we get. It was a completion. It was a 15-yard completion, but it doesn't matter. So now it's 2nd and 15. Well, he ends up calling a deep pass the very next play. Didn't complete it. Now it's 3rd and 15. And obviously at this point now, we got to get all 15 yards, and it doesn't work out. And he ended up doing that twice, and it was a great teaching moment. I was like, brother, you guys start thinking like me. Like, how can you always get back on schedule, and how can you always get yards back? And so on that 1st and 15, when you got screwed with the time because it was 3 seconds, your first thought should have been, okay, what is a completion that I can hit that if we catch it and get touch, it is a gain of at least 6 to 7. It is an easy completion. That way now we're back to third manageable or maybe even on schedule. Um, you saw it whenever I had that conversation with after the game, like, oh my goodness, it's not just always go get the 15 yards. It's this is not, we're not playing, um, we're not playing tic tac toe here. We're playing chess, and I need to be thinking about this play not because of that play, but because of the play that I'm going to call 3 or 4 plays ahead of now. You saw that kind of click and register for him. That's where I think 7-on-7 is so invaluable with the kids, because now he's having to think in that regard, um, which any other kind of, in my opinion, way of doing it, where there's a coach out there and he's, hey, we're going to do this play here, and you got the whirly bird here, and you got this cross, and actually all 5 of you guys are going to run this way, while the one guy goes the opposite way to create the mesh, which is actually a play we're never going to run ever in football, but we're going to do it today. But you just get no benefit doing that. And so, like, our running back in 7-on-7, he gets mad because I'm making him do a check, like check 1 to 2 to 3, and then get out. And he's like, Coach, why? I'm like, because that's real football, and I get it, they can't blitz, but like, I need your route to time up. I need you to get to the triangle in this timing, to where by the time the shallow gets there and the basic comes here at this precise amount of time, you are now into your end of the triangle. If you go too early, you might pull the mic out too early, and yeah, that'll up the basic, but it's like, I don't want that. Like, so to me, your point, you said it very well earlier. It's the process of which you approach it, which is very, very important. And I feel like 7 out of 10 teams approach it in the wrong manner. Not to say that I'm right. I'm just saying, you know what? I am saying I'm right. I'm gonna go ahead and say I'm gonna go ahead and say that. Like, I'm doing it for real football, and that's the right way to do it. Not just to have 7 guys run a rub route. So
Or when another great teaching moment is, which is really hard for the kids, is your defense is out there and they make a goal line stand, and but they just played 13 plays or whatever it is, right? And then your quarterback goes out and takes his shot and they score, and he's like, "What? We scored?" And it's like, "Yeah, you see all those guys laid down on the sideline? They got to come back out on the field."
such a good
Oh, I
point.
didn't even think about it. Yeah, I know. That's why I yelled at you when you were jogging on the field. Be smart. I can't say, hey, don't throw it deep, because that would be coaching. So what I said was
Yeah.
be smart, and you were not. That was very unsmart of you.
That's such a good point, though. Yeah, because they're not going to think about that. There are such tunnel vision kids, and they can't see outside those goggles. But that's why it's good for them. So it is funny though, because like I have this, like, obviously, um, process of which, hey, we're going to 7-on-7, like in our league here, which is so stupid. But like, running backs can't run swings. Everything has to be past the line of scrimmage. So now you're making me change my playbook. Um, you know, but whatever. And so anyway, I have this process. I'm like, guys, I just want to have a great process here. If we win, we win. I'm good. And it never fails. Like 3 plays into it, you know, I'm like trying to call somebody to go to him. Hey, they're going cover 4. Run this instead. I know it's not in our playbook. It's like trying to. The competitive side comes out, and I always got to like kind of calm myself and be like, no, you know what? It's yeah, maybe they're a Super Bowl. Screw them. Like, yeah, I want to win, and I'm not trying to tell our kids it's not important. But what is more important that I would rather us fail on this play tonight while trying to execute it, and that allows for execution in the future with real football, than do a bunch of random stuff that has no relevance to what we're doing in the future. I got to keep that in mind, which is very, very hard when you're, as a coach, which we're all alphas, when those competitive juices are going, you tend to lose that sight and you just want to, go down there and, kill them all. So,
When the coaches from the other school are standing over there like, that's right. This is what we do.
oh,
It's like,
yeah.
no, it's not. You don't run Tampa ever. You've never run Tampa. You never will run Tampa. You're a
That's
middle
right.
field closed team. And this isn't, unless you hired somebody new, this is not who you are. But sure, yeah, this is what you do. Got it. You waste time.
Yeah.
Sick.
Yes. Yeah. And yes, like you could tell last night the team we played, they had like worked on those. We just played them the week before,
And they schemed
and you
you.
could.
They studied film.
Oh, dude, they every cover 3 beater in the book that you could imagine, they pulled out, and it's like really, like we literally didn't even what we did all week long was literally basically walk through 11-on-11 real football in the indoor, going over GY counter. Could care less about what your cover 2 man stuff is. Um, so it's frustrating.
All right. That's good.